Hi students, this is your teacher, Ms. McCarty. Today we're going to be talking about how to create visual models for Common Core word problems. This is a Common Core third grade math word problem and the text credit is at the top of the page. I recommend using a clean white piece of paper for each problem so that you have plenty of room to draw. The first thing we're going to do for every word problem is we're going to put the operation symbols in a box at the top of the problem. So here you can see I've added operations, multiplication, addition, subtraction, and division are all the options for actions we have when solving word problems. Since this unit is also about equations, I'm going to add an equal sign in a box above the word problem as well. We know that all equations contain equal signs. First, let's read through the whole problem one time, just to get an overview. Mrs. D is baking pies and cakes for a school fundraiser. She bought 26 apples, 29 peaches, and a number of bananas at the farmer's market. She bought 66 pieces of fruit. How many bananas did she buy? Then we're going to identify the action of the problem. Ideally, the verb. What's the key verb in this word problem? There's a couple of verbs in this problem that might make sense, like baking, but the main one is buying. We know that because it's in the question. How many bananas did she buy? So let's write buying fruit as our action. And let's think about any items or tools we might need when doing this in real life. I know for me, I can't carry 66 pieces of fruit by myself with just my hands, so let's put a little shopping cart. I don't want to put it in a basket either. That's just too much fruit for me. So we're going to put our shopping cart there, and that's going to be helpful to us. The next thing we're going to do is determine the units of measurement or the label for our answer. We always need a word label for our answer for every word problem. So the best place to find that unit of measurement is in the question. How many bananas did she buy? That unit of measurement is bananas. If you didn't reread the question, you might think the units of measurement would be fruit or money, which are important concepts, but they're not the main unit of measurement that we need in our answer. Another way to think of it is if someone asked you how many bananas you bought at the store, you wouldn't answer, I paid $5, because that wouldn't make sense. You're not answering the question. With word problems, we always want to make sure we answer the question. This is a multi-step problem. It has 2 steps. In order to be precise and make sure we're taking the right steps, it's important to create some kind of model. And the easiest model to create is a visual one that we can draw on the page. In math, we want to focus on efficiency. This is not fine art. We want to work carefully and precisely, but we also don't want to spend a ton of time drawing really detailed pictures because then these word problems will take much longer to solve. I'm sure for most of you students, there are many other things in your life that you'd rather do than be stuck on this problem for a really long time. And when you're working on a job someday, oftentimes there's a deadline, and being able to create fast visual models is a valuable skill. For example, if you're helping an astronaut in space who is having a technical crisis, you probably don't want to spend hours of time drawing a perfect representation of the spaceship with the colors perfectly painted in and so forth. What you do want is to find the simplest shape that captures the concept as accurately as possible in order to solve your problem. If you're working at NASA, that basic shape might be blueprints of the spaceship. In elementary school, basic shapes are going to be helpful for you in solving your math problem. So let's take a look at some of the basic shapes for drawing models. We have a square, a rectangle, a bar, or a line, and we also have a circle. Every once in a while, you might need to use a triangle, but pretty much these shapes that you see right now will work nicely. I recommend having these shapes in front of you on a separate piece of paper when you're working on your word problems. You can draw them yourself, or you can print out a hard copy from the internet. Now let's go back and read the problem more closely and look for important information. I'm going to read each line and analyze it. For the first line, Mrs. D is baking pies and cakes for a school fundraiser. I'm going to ask myself if there's any information in that line that I need to answer the question. Since my action is buying fruit, I don't see any action like that taking place in this sentence. So I'm going to cross it out. But I'm not going to cross it out too much so that I can refer back to it just in case this is a mistake. The next sentence does have some information that's important and that relates to buying fruit. So let's read it and underline the most important pieces of that sentence. She bought 26 apples, 29 peaches, and a number of bananas at the farmer's market. I'm going to underline all the numbers and their labels. Remember, labels are really important in word problems. Now I'm going to read the last sentence. She bought 66 pieces of fruit. I'm going to underline pieces of fruit because pieces alone could be pieces of anything. It could be pieces of candy, pieces of gravel. So it's really important when we have a word like pieces that we find out what it is, pieces of fruit. And then we come back to our question, how many bananas did she buy? Now I want to draw the important pieces of information. I'm going to choose the shape of a circle because for me, most of the fruit I buy is in a circle or is a circle. And I'm going to use circles to represent fruit. Now in early elementary school, it might have made sense for you to draw each piece of fruit because maybe you had, only one apple, one banana, one peach. So you could draw each of those in a reasonable amount of time. But now if I have to go and draw 66 pieces of fruit, that's going to take all day. So in upper elementary school, we learn to use one shape to represent multiple pieces. I'm going to draw one circle to represent apples. And when you draw your own fruit, you can choose whatever shape you want. You do not have to choose a circle. Whatever makes sense to you. You can also choose whatever color makes sense for you. Some of you may like green apples the most. I like red apples, so my apple is going to be red. And then I'm going to draw one circle for peaches. And I'm going to color that in orange because I associate peaches with orange. And I'm going to draw one circle for bananas. And you'll notice my circles are not perfect, and that's okay. Again, it's not fine art. They don't have to be perfect. Just to give myself a sense of the problem visually. Now I'm going to draw the corresponding numbers in each fruit. And this is a bit tricky, so it's really important to go back to our problem and make sure we're matching the numbers correctly. So 26 apples, 29 peaches, and an unknown number of bananas. So I'm going to write B. I also want to put an equal sign somewhere near my problem because I'm going to figure out the equation for the first step of this multi-step word problem. And equations always contain an equal sign. So I know Mrs. D bought all of these pieces of fruit. She bought 66 pieces of fruit. And the implied word there is total, right? So I'm going to draw one more circle. And this is going to represent the total of all the pieces of fruit. And now I want to figure out which of these operations I'm going to use in this equation. You notice that I put 66 to the right of the equation because that's where I put my answers. So the total number is this, so the total is the answer, and now I need to figure out what action goes between these numbers. And I'm basically deciding their relationship. So just in case I feel a little lost, I'm going to put in another visual that reminds me what I'm doing. I'm going to put in my shopping cart. Okay, so I know that these are all the fruits in my shopping cart. And all together, there are 66 pieces. So I've added each type of fruit to my cart. So I'm going to put in a plus, an addition symbol. Okay, this is step number 1 of my problem. There are some numbers that I can combine. Use my calculator to do this addition so that I can free up my higher order thinking skills to focus on the big picture of the problem. So 55 plus B is the same as 26.9 plus B. So I'm going to write that down below the cart so it's not too confusing. Oops. And again, with precision, we are always kind of checking what we're writing, making sure it's accurate, because with word problems, it's really easy to lose track of where we are. So we always kind of take a step back and make sure we're doing everything precisely and slowly. All right, so that's my first step. 55 plus B equals 66, but it's not my final answer. My final answer will tell me how many bananas she bought. So let's look at the equation and figure out what operation would help you find out the answer for B. And if you can't understand what to do next from just the equation, we can come back to our shopping cart. If I want to find out how many bananas there are in this cart, I would take out the other pieces of fruit so that only the bananas are left. If I'm taking away fruit, what operation symbol is that? And if some of you said subtraction, you're right. Okay. What are we subtracting? So I'm going to put them in my subtraction sign. I'm putting back in my equal sign for the step 2. Which of these numbers goes first? What am I subtracting bananas from? And if this, some of you may automatically know, but if you feel a little lost, what I like to do is create a simpler problem that represents the same concept. So in my cart, I'm going to put 1 apple plus 2 peaches plus an unknown amount of bananas equals 6 total. Okay. So if I take out the apples and peaches, how many bananas do I have? You might automatically see that you have 3 bananas because you took 3 away from 6. So 3 are left. Okay, so this can help us figure out what order to put the numbers in. So this number 6 moved from the end of the problem to the beginning of the problem. So I'm going to do the same with this number. I'm going to move it to the beginning. And how much am I subtracting? What's left in the cart? I took out the other fruit, so the only thing left is the bananas. I'm taking away those, and the only thing left is the bananas. So I can use my calculator to solve this. 66 minus 55 is 11. But 11 is not my final answer. What am I missing? Remember, a word problem always has a word label in the answer. So it's 11 bananas.